as an entrepreneur. If you're feeling unsure of next steps, sometimes just coming back to simplicity is the right answer. Learn what people are saying in your industry or in business and learn as a sponge. Take the nuggets from the strategy and then being called back into the awareness and presence of knowing how to implement that in a way that's best fit for you and for your business. I think there's also a simplicity in relationships, being present for each other in the AI world that we are already into. It's changing very quickly and rapidly. It's even more important that we place relationships and connections as a part of what we do in business. Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. I'm your host, Kara, and today's a solo show. And you might notice there is a different background behind me. That is because I am in Australia. Yes, I am on a beautiful lanai, this little villa, and actually here for a retreat with Jen Cudmore, who many of you have heard me talk about her on the podcast before. She's been a guest. She's my business coach. And so we've had this really lovely, lovely time in Byron Bay. And it's been, a real upgrade and up level in the business, because I think as entrepreneurs, we're really called to, as we expand and up level, there's also I think it's important that we look at ways that we are, upgrading as humans. How are we up-leveling our understanding of business, our understanding of how business is intended to flow? And as we kind of are allowed to be on our own presence and light, then it allows us to come back and return to the business with a greater level of presence and awareness and discernment for what's needed in the business. So if you are right now needing the nudge to take some of that time, or maybe a little bit of permission as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as, if you're feeling unsure of next steps, sometimes just coming back to simplicity is the right answer. And actually, that's what I wanted to talk about today, was this idea of business and simplicity in business. Because I think so many of us, we make it very hard, and we don't even make it hard. We're bombarded with people and media and, people that are telling us all these things that we need to do in order to grow. Well, take this magic course and all of a sudden your business is going to expand and be better. Take this, go here, do this, implement this system, and now you're going to have the secret sauce that allows your business to grow to higher levels, right? Sort of all around us. And one of the things that I think there is a real, especially in this AI-driven world that we're in, and you've heard me talk about it before, I am a big believer in many of the ways that AI is allowing us to create efficiencies and help us in the business. But there is also I think a real coming back or returning to simplicity there's an opportunity for us all right now in that. And when I talk about coming back to simplicity, I think it's coming back to presence. It's coming back to prayer. It's coming back to our own inner knowing of what needs to happen in order to take the next steps. And even just over the past, I'd say, several weeks, I've really been asking more of God, for answers, for understanding, well, what is this supposed to mean? Or tell me who I'm supposed to meet. I'll share with you that on my way to Byron Bay, I had a major travel dilemma in which I was sitting on the plane. So my flight that was supposed to leave for Sydney, there was some really bad weather, and we were sitting on the tarmac for 3 hours. And in that time, I was really trying to get into a Zen state. And I was like, okay, we're going to take off. It's just taking off a little longer than it's supposed to, but we've got this. Well, 3 hours later, pilot comes on and announces that the flight was canceled. Now, my first thought was, oh my gosh, what am I going to do in LA? Nothing against people that live in LA. There's lots of great things about California, but LA is really not like my happy place. I was thinking, what am I going to possibly do here at a, airport hotel for a whole 24 hours? And I actually I prayed and I said, God, if you're going to keep me in LA for 24 hours, who do you want me to meet? Who do I know here? Who am I supposed to connect with? Because obviously there's some type of reason that I'm here. Well, not 5 minutes later, I get a message from somebody else that's actually going on the retreat that I'm going on. And she's coming from a totally different airport. I actually had no clue she was flying through LA. And her flight actually took off from Sydney because it was a different plane that was able to take off in the winds that mine was not. But she had missed her flight because there had been a very close connection, and so she wasn't able to make it. So anyway, I hear from her 5 minutes after this prayer is said, and I thought, okay, there's the answer. Now, she and I had known each other before, but in that, but not as deeply. And we just had an incredibly special 24 hours before the retreat started that we were on our way to. And it was certainly divinely timed, I believe. And I think that's where, again, coming back to simplicity, coming back to asking for guidance and then being open to the answers you receive. When something happens, asking, hey, what am I supposed to learn in this? Where would you like me to expand next? What in the business needs my attention right now? What are the ways, if this is where I want to be, then what do I need to connect with in order for that to happen? And so I do think there is a real call back to simplicity in knowing what's next, because in this really ever-changing world, it's really interesting. I've been doing it's kind of a different level work in working with Jen, but I've also been part of a lot of masterminds that have a lot of strategy. And what I've been coming back to continually is that I think that we're called to learn the strategies. We're called to go out, and it doesn't mean that we shut all of those down because they're AI or because there's some type of strategy, maybe that's even coming from somebody that you don't respect. But, I think we're being called to learn the strategies, learn about what the economists are saying, learn what, the people are saying in your industry or in business, and learn as a sponge. However, to take the nuggets from those conversations, take the nuggets from the strategy, and then being called back into the awareness and presence of knowing how to implement that in a way that's best fit for you and for your business. The others, so I think there's a few things that we're being called to when we talk about being called back to simplicity. It's simplicity in really prayer as part of our business and prayer as a strategy. And that's kind of a weird thing to say because prayer really isn't a strategy, but I believe the more we allow it to be part of our business, then we are going to be putting ourselves into maybe avoiding pitfalls or dangers or things where we're not meant to be, and then we're opening to where we are supposed to be because we're moving in flow with where we're supposed to be at that moment in time. I think there's also a simplicity in relationships of really being present for each other. And I think that in the AI world that we are on our way already into, and also it's changing very quickly and rapidly. And as this is unfolding, there is a even a stronger pull and a stronger, it's even more important that we place relationships and connections as a heart of what we do in business, because we are living in this world. We are not from this world, right? And so how do we connect to other humans in a way to show up and say, how can I help? How do we really practice presence? And the more presence and the more we lean into the power of relationships and connections, I think that we're then guided in a way in our businesses that sort of protect us. You know, it's also a way of moving through the world in protection, you know, protection from God, especially with everything that's going on right now. And I think, you know, there is something about the energy that's being created when we look at energy created on media, fear that's created on media. There is a feeding of that. Like there are, you know, the fear that's created. We really have to learn discernment on how to step ourselves out of that fear, because just because that may be true for someone else, you know, just because somebody else's business is experiencing something doesn't mean it's true for you. Because when you're operating in discernment and awareness in a presence, knowing that you're protected in divine simplicity, coming back to guidance, to asking for guidance as you move through your day, then the right answers show up, the right people show up, the right opportunities show up to lead you to that next level, right? And so I think that the what I want to leave you with really is very simple. It is that in an ever-growing complex world, what are the ways maybe this week that you can show up in simplicity? What are the ways that you can show up maybe in divine simplicity? In a way where you're asking more for, just practice it for a day. Maybe just don't have an agenda and say, you know, of course, honor the commitments that you've made, but show up in a way where you are open to things that are unfolding for you, for asking for where you should go next, for using that as your compass for the day, and see how things might evolve a little differently. So I'm wishing you lots of love from Byron Bay in Australia. And I just think the more that we lean into simplicity, there's real power in that. All right. Love and blessings. Until next time.